Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of ChasingPokerGreatness.com, Coach Brad Wilson. And today's guest on CPG is former co-owner of Live at the Bike, Wayne Chiang, who's dropping in to share some very exciting news. Live at the Bike is back and better than ever. So without spoiling too much of the show, today you're going to learn why the poker world ought to be insanely excited about the new Live at the Bike ownership, how the OG live stream has evolved in the year 2022, and what Wayne believes will be the future of Live at the Bike and the streaming space in general. Also, if you want a sneak peek of the brand spanking new state-of-the-art Live at the Bike setup and you're on YouTube, be sure to stick around after today's show so that you can watch head CPG private coach Shu and I break down two pre-recorded hands played on the brand new Live at the Bike setup by today's guest, Wayne Chiang. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Wayne, welcome back to Chasing Poker Greatness, sir. How you been?
All right, Brad, just a lot of work, infinite work, as you know.
Infinite work. The work,
Infinite work
never ends. You cut one head off and two heads spawn like the Hydra.
It's like 24. Shout out to David Fury, the executive producer. He's, when Jack Bauer solves one problem, there's two more right staring him in space.
Luckily, we're friends with the Hydra, or at least I am. I don't mind navigating the work. I think if I didn't have anything to do, I would probably just lose my mind.
I think that at least for Live at the Bike's case, well, clear there, it's been around for like 17 years. I was not even close to there from the start. I've been around 6-7 years. The director, Brian Arkaki, shout out to him. He's a trooper. He's been there for 10 years. And the executive producer, the former executive producer, Evelyn Dillard, she's, iron woman to do this way. And, after my involvement as a co-owner, for better or worse, I have an internet startup background. I'm a big fan of watching like Y Combinator, Gary Vee, and stuff like that. So, my contribution helped facilitate the sale.
Tell me about that, the sale of Live at the Bike, and actually just how it came about that you were the owner or the co-owner of Live at the Bike in the first place.
So co-owner, like Live at the Bike's got a long history. I had, of course, heard about it before I was involved. And because, people like you and I, we play online and have millions of hands, it doesn't interest us because it's like, after you play probably even 100,000 hands, this stuff just isn't, that interesting. But, there was Bart Hansen, David Tuchman, Evelyn, like Nicole Juergens, like all these people, led up to the development of Live at the Bike to the point where, Lyman Poker, a good friend of ours in the, just the realist when it comes to the poker world. Anybody who's interested in poker, just got to listen to Poker Sesh. He'll just tell you the truth and not sugarcoat it. He was a co-owner with Nicole Juergens, Brian Arkaki, and Evelyn Dillard. And I was playing in Lyman's PLO game. I was bust. This was like 10 years ago. I had a lot of family issues. When you go bust, you got to blame yourself, like first and foremost, unless you're literally dealt the losing hand nonstop for 14 months, which also happened to me at a later time, not when I went bust. So, but I was a lot wiser when it happened. So I told a joke to Lyman and he's like, tell another one. And I told him no. He's like, tell another one. I don't even remember the jokes. I got like nonstop jokes. It's like, it's like, this is the 5th time you said last orbit, I swear, stuff like that. Or another one's like, when somebody tells you a bad beat story, it's annoying, right? Or it's not annoying to me because I just say, wow, that's like top 5, maybe top 3 worst beats of all time. Oh my God, that's like top 5, maybe top 3 worst beats of all time. Jeez, I feel so bad for you. That's like top 5, maybe top 3 worst beats of all time. Just move on,
It sounds like you've got that pretty well rehearsed.
Yeah, we got, Lyman and I got a lot of a lot of toolkits for, the normal poker player. And then, so he's like, commentate with me. And I'm like, is it paid? He's like, yes. I'm like, well, I'm busted. I don't have many choices. So I got on, playing the shows to showcase that I could play. So I'm qualified to commentate because like wow, at least back in the day, there's a lot of poker commentators were like, do you even play? Do you play poker, bro? So yeah, that was like I played all the games. And because no limit hold'em commentators are a dime a dozen. So I, specifically set out to showcase that I play the other games to be qualified. And one of the big things of why no limit hold'em games have trouble with audiences, people don't even know the hand rankings. Like the audience is like, what's Badoogie? What's Deuces Seven? What's the nuts? And then you have to like, well, the way I do things, which helped, is translate everything into no limit hold'em terms as much as you can. Obviously, the draw game is more difficult, but something like in Deuces Seven, having a deuce is key, kind of like an ace, and then you want to have a deuce and a seven and a card in between 3 and a 5. That's kind of like having ace king. It's like you don't have a made hand, but you're drawing 2 very strong hand. So just analogies like that.
Yeah, just anchoring the education in something that the audience or the watcher, the viewer already knows.
And the audience is so nitpicky. He's like, oh, what about A? What about B? What about C? It's like we're doing what we can to like try to help the audience, bring it in. And poker, of course, is a marketing problem because like the pros just like have so much bigger edge on the recreational players, more so than a table game. So while pros are boasting how much better they are, it's like you're literally scaring away the fish because they're going to lose more in a poker game faster than if they play baccarat, especially baccarat. So
Yeah. So you and Lyman, y'all are joking around. You start commentating on Live at the Bike, and then you're busted, right? So how does
well
one
i
buy
i
Live at the Bike from
oh, I
there?
mean, this is like way store. So I became a prop at the bike and just like, just worked my way up. I was doing, I had an entrepreneurship project too, and just it's rough. It's like Steve Jobs initially said, it's bad tasting medicine, and you just got to eat it. Like, and of course, there's a period of bitching, but really, like, attitude will hopefully persevere, like good attitude, and not just like taking the easy way outs. Which let's be honest, poker, there's a lot of upfront, seemingly easy way outs that just get you into more trouble. So yeah, I was getting paid as a prop 40-80, and it's pretty, it's like, those gigs are super good. They barely exist anymore. It was like $40 an hour, which I think 20 of it was tax free. And you get like overtime, and you play with your own money. So it's much more stable life. And I fully acknowledge, if you want to max EV in poker, you play on your own, but it's a lot harder life. And the older you get, you just don't necessarily have enough energy to keep it up.
Right.
So, that plus, commentating on Live at the Bike, and just like, as everyone knows, the Live at the Bike games are better than the average ones you see, unless you're in a new flush environment like Texas was like a year or two ago. And yeah, that's how it started. And then so I'm not like totally privy on like the happenings, but like there Live at the Bike in the back end had a bunch of situations where people all meant well to grow the product, and people just had different visions. And you could say it's sometimes a little bit people's fault or nobody's fault, but just like all companies, friends, groups, families, when they have differing views, things are going to collide. So Lyman and the other owners disagreed on what direction to take things, and Lyman sold his shares. I was up for contention. It turned out like Dan Zach and JJ De La Garza, bought them. And just, yeah, every passing day, like the company potentially wants to go in certain directions, and some people work in that direction or some people don't. And
Yeah. So with
basically,
that
yeah.
conflict and conflicting visions, some people just got out when their vision
Yeah.
wasn't realized, and then other folks bought those shares up and were pushing towards
So
that vision.
while Yeah, so as a third person point of view, just like somebody in the chat watching a poker stream, you don't know what the hell's going on. So like I hear things, I see things, and like, of course, I'm not like completely dataless, but I do not know. Like I've heard so many conflicting things, not even like not that conflicting, but just like different versions of stories that I'm just like, what? While I'm not a coner, I'm just like not going to comment on this stuff.
Yeah, there's
So
three versions to every story, right? Like each
yeah.
person's side and then the truth.
So I'll just go over the list of like coners. It was Evelyn Dillart, Brian Arakaki, Lyman, Nicole Jurgens, Ryan Feldman, Dan Zach, and JJ De La Garza. Those are the people who were pre my time. Up until then, I was like a contractor and just a player on the show. And of course, I had, high ties to the brand. But like really the back end stuff, I don't know. Like,
Sure.
other people have comments, et cetera, et cetera. But really, like, and then it came opportunity for me to have I had an option to buy Lyman shares, but the timing wasn't good. So time after I had an option to buy shares, and they were like, okay, we need ABC XYZ. Can you do this? And I'm like, yes. So I did it, and I had a bunch, like everybody, when they had tackle on a new project, you have all these ideas, like I'm going to do this, and then you face reality. You're like, oh yeah, I can't do that. I'm just gonna make things happen that are plausible. So I did. When I came on board, the viewership grew
What was the best
substantially.
idea that you had that was not plausible? That
The best idea is not plausible. So
yeah,
this was way too idealistic, and it's not so much that it's just it's too ambitious, which is to grow poker beyond no limit hold'em. I wanted to have high stakes for mixed game, limit hold'em, 7-card stud, because as we know in LA, high stakes poker is distributed among these. It's not just no limit hold'em like you see on TV. In fact, no limit hold'em was probably the least popular for a while, and the healthiest game was probably like limit hold'em, and the 7-card stud was just super consistent until that pool was no longer there. So
they aged out
my,
of this life.
yeah, they're still playing now. I see them playing mixed games and hold'em, but like, we know their heart is in 7-card stud. But like one of the unrealistic things was I wanted to showcase high stakes poker in Los Angeles in its purest form, and potentially even ever evolving as the times
Sure.
progress. And that just was not a reality.
Yeah.
Revenue wise, because people just aren't going to watch the other forms. Like even limit hold'em, which is in PLO, which is the same hand rankings, it's just like, there's no personal tension. Like if you and I are in a hand and no limit, or it's like, this is what I describe as in PLO, if you're in a hand and I'm in a hand, or we're in a hand with each other, it's like, all right, you got to draw, I got top set, whatever, we got it in. And limit hold'em's like, we're seeing the river, you got some sick play off me, but it's like one extra bet. It's like, whatever. In no limit hold'em, if I stack you, you're stack me, and one of us did a minor misstep or somebody got coolered or something, it just gets more personal. And that personal behavior comes out on camera, and you feel it because when you're playing in real life, like you just have emotions that, you potentially don't have in the other games.
What about PLO? I mean, I see what you're saying, but PLO, it feels like, a really high stakes PLO game could grab some viewers, right? Lots of money on the table, in the same way that like, folks watch poker tournaments and there's always a big flip for $1 million, right? It's not exactly high level strategy stuff. It's like, oh, somebody's got the ace king and somebody's got the jacks. Let's go for $1 million.
So the answer to this is in PLO, the audience isn't as familiar. So with No Limit Hold'em, it's a great design because it's easy for the viewer to figure out what to do with 2 cards,
Right.
especially when you have options on move all in. When you have 4 cards and only 2 in your hand, you must play 2 in your hand and 3 on the board. Even like a veteran like me, like when I'm watching PL, I'm like, I'm not, I miss things. And just like, that's the problem. So it's like, if I want to watch PLO, then sure, I want to watch like Dylan Weissman or, Chris Wayne or Chris Brewer, like all these like superstars, but
Has anyone tried high stakes PLO live? A
yeah.
live
And
stream?
I mean, we ran a 2040-80 with the Upswing guys. It's just the ecosystem's not sustainable. Plus, like, more so than Hold'em, you have highly competitive PLO and you have just like wild animal PLO. So really the wild animal PLO is just like, hey, let's have a party. I have a, double suited like six gapper. Let's go, and the hyper competitives, like, like when do you three bet the 8775, against the hijack raise? Like that's, and even talking about that is like the EV can be so slim either way and have player history involved. So it's tough because the no limit hold'em community is like centralized and anchor. There's a history. There's Chris Moneymaker, and then the 2005 guys on TV, and then just branches off into so many different directions. But there's something to anchor it. Whereas like when you try to introduce something new, I mean, obviously Joe Ingram, one aka Chicago Joey, tried to evangelize PLO and it has grown, but it's just really hard for the average viewer to be like, oh my God, and just like stay with it too. Whereas like No Limit Hold'em, the second I want to get serious, I have like, Chasing Poker Greatness podcast, plus like, so many training sites like Upswing, Run It Once, Raise Your Edge, Crush Light Poker, like all these different resources. If I want to get better, and I have like, streams like Live at the Bike, Poker Go, like all these things to just watch and, learn. Whereas like, I would say like Limit Hold'em is even the second one where it branches off and there's still a lot of material on it, but are people ever going to be inspired to be like, yeah, I just want to get better at Limit Hold'em? It's
Well,
just like, it's a completely different.
yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
Limit Hold'em has realized and maxed out its potential at this stage of the game.
I
PLO,
disagree. I disagree, but at the same time, but the thing is, there's no incentive to chase it. Like every game, even No Limit Hold'em has just gone so deep down the rabbit hole. Like I was listening to Ben CV talk about an MTT hand, where he's like, yeah, pocket fours are better than pocket fives in this circumstance because, they have like king five suited and ace five suited, which would fold to a rip, but you want to unblock the five in their hand with the fours. I'm just like, oh my God, like, I have one of the best graphs on global poker and I don't even know that stuff. I mean, if you tell it to me, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. But
yeah, like effectively pocket fours is better than fives here because of, fours doesn't block the hands. Right.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's not something I'm quite unstudied at MTTs, so not a thing that I've like really put a lot of energy into the tournament side of things. But yeah, going back though.
Yeah, we can talk about MTT stuff later, but yeah, going back to Live at the Bike, when I came in, I have a lot of influence from like, Y Combinator, Gary V, Dennis Fong, who created gamers.com, Xfire, Raptor, Plays.tv. Now he's working on a Web3 project. Like and JC Everson, who's the co-founder of chess.com. These are, guys I grew up with, and I'm not as natural of an entrepreneur as they are, but just observing them and just studying, it's like, at some point it's my turn to bat, and this was my turn. So I increased the viewership. The peak concurrent on Live at the Bike, I think, was about 3,000. During my run, it increased to like 8.8K peak concurrent when COVID happened, and the revenue was increased by about, I don't know, I would say 35 to 40%.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's hard. It's a give or take. I was aiming, and I've, produced the most high stakes poker episodes on stream. That being said, like, I don't have the most sexy ones, and mine's more about consistency and efficiency. And when, a company like Bally's sees that kind of consistency, longevity, plus increased revenue, then it's open for purchase. Whereas if a company's like losing money, may not be such a good purchase.
Right. And so you bought Live at the Bike, you built it up to like
I was
over
one of the people, like many,
one of,
like,
yeah, there was
yeah,
many owners, but you bought in the ownership group. It built up
it was my
to
influence. It was heading in that kind of direction. And, and again, like, it's like not like everybody's got different views. We all mean well. Like everyone wants the product to do well,
of
but
course
just like
nobody wants it
everybody
to
has
burn to the
different.
ground. They just have different ideas about how to build it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So at least when I was involved, we were relatively in the same direction. And of course, all of us wanted different things, but that takes time, energy, and resources. And we have to pick our battles. So when people look on the outside, they're like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like one of the most common ones, like I get DM them just like, hey, you should do a 24-hour stream. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Who's going to run it? Who's going to pay for it?
Right, right. Um, so on the production side and the sales side, so eventually you sell your shares, or does the whole ownership group sell to Bally's? Is that what happened? And what year did that happen?
That happened approximately March or April 2021.
So
So
about a
that's
year
when,
ago.
yeah, like the talks started, and basically it was like, yeah, because like at least for my contribution, one, I'm just one person and I have a finite amount of energy and ability to contribute. And what they were talking about, which you're going to hear on Card Player and podcasts to come, they had their vision of a show and just to continually build on this product. So, as a small team, we could continue to run that product, but it has its limitations. And, we got to the point where it's like, when we liked what we were hearing, um, and it was just time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah,
You mentioned that Feldman was part of the ownership group, right? Who spun off and now
yep.
is running the Hustler stream. So I imagine that like differences in ideologies or how things go, I guess this is
Yep.
another component of it, right? They get to go off and he's, doing his own thing and trying to realize his vision for what a poker live stream ought to
So
be.
yeah, I mean, I've worked with Ryan quite a bit, like, in Hustler, it's like some people Hustler have issues with the people I work with and vice versa. And like, I'm kind of stuck in the middle, and it's just kind of like, they make it an effort to mention this beef is, there's no beef with me. And the thing is, I was not co-owners. I was not actually there when the stuff with Ryan and the other co-owners, when it went down. So like, I hear things, but at the same time, at the end, and Ryan and I had talked about this because like I had heard stuff and he's like, that wasn't true. And other people said things, he said things, and just like, there's the other co-owners
Yeah.
like, that's not true. So it's like,
Right, right.
you know
It's
what, I don't
again,
know.
there's one side of the story, the other side of the story, and then the truth is in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to gauge. And honestly, it probably just doesn't really matter so much. What's done is done, and what they're doing is great. And from what I've seen from what you're doing, it appears to be great as well, which is heading into the Bally's buy and then the relaunch of Live at the
They're
Buy.
just totally different directions. That's the thing, is there's different shows. It's like even the World Series and the WPT are two different shows.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're so, and just like,
And there's room
Poker
for both,
Go.
right? Like there's room
Yeah,
for both.
we're lucky that there's demand for all this stuff. Like, this, definitely some, like, comparisons, but at the same time, it's like when a shoe brand comes out, like, the Jordans come out, or the Reebok pumps come out, like every product is going to have their product that brings something to the table. And in the end, I hate to be so cold about it, but the industry wins. And as poker players, we have to be kind of cold about these situations. And like I said, Live at the Bike's been around for 17 years and gone through like so many different people that each threw in their pebble to the glass of water half empty or half full, and just piles on, and nobody knows what's going to happen. But our relaunch is April 30th, and me and the older staff I was working with and the newer staff were just like, wow, we had no idea this was coming. Like, this is just insane, and there's more things to come.
What is
So
insane about the relaunch?
the room got completely renovated, tape, new table software. There's like some software that we have and now in development that is not going to be new to the tech industry, but at least for the poker industry, is this doesn't exist. The back of the room, which we'll see with the videos, is they're on monitors, and you could do a lot of cool things with those monitors. Like if you and I are in a hand, it'll have, and we've had hands together for 5 years. Let's take Andy and Garrett for example, because they probably have the most hands on Live with the Bike against each other. Like if the camera's on Garrett, then they show that he's been on Survivor, and him and Andy had battled like even long before Live with the Bike, and the camera's on Andy, and vice versa. It's like all the stuff that he's working on is sponsored by GG Poker now, and just the growth of those two players over the almost 2 decades.
Yeah, so you can put like clips of that in the background, or profiles, or stats, or just any kind of graphic that you would like.
There's like the team's already shot out a ton of ideas, and just the new executive producers and Bally's, when they hear all these ideas, are like, wow, that's amazing. They're so open-minded, and it's like, it's a really big change, because even when I was involved, and I've definitely heard stories before, like people were debating over what direction, what vision to take it, and these new executive producers are like, we want it all. Like we want to honor you, that view, this view. So it's like cool, because
now they have the resources to invest into the product as well.
Yeah. So I'm constantly impressed by everybody on the team. Like when they have the time and energy and now resources to put their foot forward, it's like, wow, it's not just like, it's a different feel, because we can now step by step do a lot of things that all of us wanted to do, rather than pick and choose, and just like settle on something, I guess.
So when Live at the Bike relaunches in the very, very near future, my plan is to get this out before the 30th. What can the listener/viewer of Chasing Poker Greatness expect? Why should they tune in to this new iteration of Live at the Bike?
Well, we've already recorded 5 shows. I think today's the 6th show, and we'll have more. But on the 30th, we potentially will have $4.5 million on the table. And I'm pretty sure that's beat every United States record. It might even be higher than Triton. I don't know. So, I don't want to be quoted on that. But we're going big. And
4.5 million, you're 9-handed, right?
No, not even 9. I think it's 7.
7-handed.
It might be 8. It might be 8-handed. But yeah,
it's a lot of money per person. It's 400,000 a person.
No, a couple or few are buying a mill.
Yeah, so we could potentially have some $1 million pots.
We can potentially have some $2 million pots. With all their money too. Like, I don't want to throw particular people on the bus, but when you're like, a lot of people playing the super high roller rolls are, high stakes cash. They're not playing with all their own money.
Yeah. Well,
these guys are.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter to me so much whether or not folks are playing with all of their own money. It's somebody's money. So somebody's upset one way or the other, and somebody's happy one way or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are some giant stakes. Can you speak to the players that will be competing for all this money?
And yeah, we've definitely reached out a lot of people, and the people who are showing up are, among our first draft picks, so to say. So, that's exciting. There's obviously some people we want to get, and we'll get in the future, but they're just not available. And,
sure.
But yeah, I don't know what to say. And each show.
Well, who are the characters? Who are the characters? Are you at liberty to say, like, who's playing in these, this game with 4.5 million on the table?
Like I say, there's half classic people and half people. There's definitely 2 people that haven't been on before on Live at the Bike, and half classic, and of course some big names that have been there.
It's very vague, Wayne. It's very vague. I guess you'll have to tune in to Live at the Bike.
I can't
see the folks who are battling.
there's social media pushes, and as of the meeting on April 26th, like we are still discussing what to do, and I'm not, I'm one of the liaisons to Live at the Bike. I'm not in control of the media, and there's an intro shot with Eric Hicks, Chris Ewing, Kitty, Lynn, Matt Berkey. It is just like, it's filmed by Matthew Sefcik, who's a very good friend of mine. He's in the poker world, he's more affectionately known as Wheeze, my co-commentator. But he's an award-winning commercial, short film, and music video director, and he just really came with it with this. And there's just more to come. Like,
and
yeah,
for watching it, right? Like, where still YouTube streaming? Where do folks go?
YouTube, the same YouTube channel as it's always been on, and there will be more coming. It's I hate to be so vague, but if when there's
this mysterious relaunch of Live at the Bike that will go live.
Hey, so this is the God honest truth of what happened. Like 2 Fridays ago, one of the games was filmed. Like the big names were Maria Ho. I think Matt Berkey was in there. Not totally sure, but yeah, Matt Berkey was in there. So after Bally saw this, we were gonna just launch last week. After Bally saw this, and it's still rough. It's just, but as a first draft for what to come, they're like, we're gonna do more. This is the beginning, not even close then. So that's why it's difficult for me to talk about things, because there's so much stuff in the air, and I'm hearing like good news like every day. So, it's different when you're a co-owner. But just like especially in the internet startup world, you hear about this. It's like, sometimes it's time to let go and let somebody else, take the reins that has more resources. I'm just gonna, like, I'll be unmodest, or I will be modest and say a better vision, because when I joined Live at the Bike, I regged the high stakes games in like every game. Like, we were probably at some crossover, like DJF remembers him and I playing heads up 7-card stud. I remember playing Nolan Hold'em with them. I don't remember the stud, but just like I was
old. Heads up,
yeah,
7-card stud. Yeesh.
Just, how it is. Like, when you're in that era, everybody's around, people like, come and go or come back or like change directions in their life. And at that time I was like, well, I play everything. I've regged the high stakes games, so I should be okay to like be involved here. And at this point, Bally's wants to take Live with the Bike and the concept of the show just bigger than ever. And that's something, because like I spend most of my time on the West Coast, like Vegas, San Diego, Bay Area, and LA. So I've never set foot in Borgata, Macau, Europe, so they have plans after they mature what goes on here.
I see. So spin-offs live at, site, the Borgata or X, Y, or Z as a placeholder example. Basically, it's like, this is like it's effectively for Bally's, not going to call it like a pilot project, but kind of, that they can then duplicate if they so chose.
Or more just showcase like what is special about a certain area. Because, like I said, I don't think anyone's going to debate, like, I'm a hub for LA poker. Like, I played everything. I play the highest stakes, and, I'm more focused on building products now. I do dabble in playing here and there, but really, like, when it's time to do work, I get up, maybe not even waiting for the blind, which, as you know, as a professional poker, just kills you inside to not.
I'm so trained to wait for the blind. I was preparing for a live stream that I do once a month on poker coaching, and like making sure my tech was all set up and in Streamlabs, and I bought in at like 5NL. And like I'm like messing around at 5NL, and I'm like, okay, so I gotta wait till my big blind. I'm like, what are you doing, you idiot? The blinds are like 2 cents, 5 cents. Like, I just can't make myself, like, it feels so bad just
feel so bad
playing the blinds and then folding the button. But yes, I caught
Um,
myself just falling into that trap just naturally.
so yeah, I know some people on the East Coast, like, friends and people I obviously know because they're famous. So like friends like, Dan Zach or like Melissa Burr, who, were in the Borgata streets. And then, people I know because they're famous, like Sean Deeb, it's just like, what can, if something were to happen in Borgata after Live the Bike showcases what it could do in LA. And there's just so many, like, it's not blind to any of the former owners what could be done with Live of the Bike because it's in the heart of Los Angeles. It's that time, money, and energy. Like it's just, and now Bally's and the new execs want to step in and just boom, make it happen for LA and then potentially look at other places to showcase.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, as somebody that's traveled around and played a lot of poker in a lot of different places, there is a different vibe, right? There's
Yeah.
different community, there's different superstars, there's different regs and different storylines, and it's just a different feel, like in Florida versus in LA, or I'm sure Texas appears to be quite different. I haven't been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
And that's probably because the lodge, obviously, Doug Polk and Brad Owen and Andrew Nemi, they're doing stuff there. So, we're all in the poker world excited to see what they come up with. But like when it comes to a quote unquote duplication process, like the lodge or even Texas Card House, or I'm like, forgive me, like I have so much on my mind, I don't know what's out there, but just like, they're not like a copy of, Live of the Bike or whatever. They're trying to create their own flavor because of where they're at. And that's like the model. It's not so much like a copying model. It's like every city, let's showcase what Borgata is, or New York's about, or, Macau's about. Like, it's not like, oh, Live of the Bike, copy, find the next Garrett. And no, it's
well,
like,
yeah, it is a decent model, right? To try to duplicate, but you're not going to find Garrett, and it's not going to be the same atmosphere. So it's more, just, yeah, just the model of Live at the Bike, and then trying to expand it elsewhere. Finding, your different players, different storylines, all the things that make a show. Which, in my mind, poker's an amazing game, and that's why I promote it, and that's why I've pretty much devoted my life to poker since I was 19 years old. And so it's really great seeing these places featured in a way that maybe some of them just haven't been yet.
so one thing, at least for Live at the Bike's case with the relaunch, is there are people who have started like, 17 years ago, like C. James, like Harry, like Josh Macchiello, Israeli Ron, like they started this and watched this thing grow long before I was there. So one thing is, especially guys that are incredibly loyal to the show, like we want to showcase them first and foremost, and grow from there and just be like, these are the guys that held on, that like started, stayed true and held on, and we need to honor them before moving on to whatever. Let's
Yeah.
make sure Live at the Bike in LA gets the first priority for the first and longest standing poker stream, and make sure that is a world famous and world respected product before moving on to the next city, I guess.
What do you have to say to the folks who have tweeted recently, Live at the Bike still exists? Live at the Bike is still a thing.
It's oh, I mean, it's just a joke. It's funny. Like I don't like, that's the thing. It's like people always want to comment, like the shade that's thrown at, like I don't know, like
Beyond
people.
the shade, where should they go to check out the
Oh,
relaunch?
I mean, I like, it's human to ask whether it's malicious or joking, like, oh, what happened to Live? Like, I saw some people like half a year ago say, oh, Live Bike's gonna go out of business, and we had already sold. So it just like, it shows that people reading social media have no idea what's going on, which is fine because it doesn't affect me slash Live of the Bike either way. Like we're gonna move forward or not. Like if people are gonna close shop, like Hallmark and Dave, they're just gonna announce it, I guess. But um yeah, it's just chatter. I don't know, like people are free to talk. Isn't that why Elon Musk or bought Twitter? Let
Yeah,
people talk.
people are free to
It's
talk.
fine.
I would say to them, check out the relaunch and see what you've been up to and all the work that
Yeah,
you've put into developing and
there's
improving the product, as well as all that money that's been funneled into it to
we
upgrade production and all that stuff.
we want to hear all the good and the bad and just like processes and see what's possible, because it's like, it's not like a 24-hour stream has escaped us, the concept, but like from a practicality perspective, it's like, not going to bring what the effort put out will it's not to recoup the effort put out. So
What about
yeah.
let's so we can wind down with this. In your exceptionally biased opinion, how do you think the relaunch is going to compare to, say, Hustler live stream?
So this is out of my hands, but like the new execs were like, they saw Hustler, and frankly, they're like, they feel like they have a better vision. And for the meantime, like we sold before Hustler even launched. So the vision was set. Bally's and the exec producers had a vision already before they even saw Hustler. And then when they saw it, they were like, they think their vision is better. When it came to survival mode in the last 8 months, shout out to Iron Man, Brian Arakaki, and myself. Like I mean, for people to say like Hustler's production is better, it's like, it better be better. Like the production we have is like a 4-year-old production. Like, you have all this brand new equipment. Like, it's just normal. It's kind of like, when you have cool sneakers like 4 years ago and they get worn down after 4 years, somebody buys, the latest new kicks. Of course it's gonna be better. And when people, when we're down for like a month and a half, or we haven't upgraded because corporate's slow, it's like, of course it's what people are gonna say. It's like, if you have queens and I have jacks and the flop's 9 high, of course you're gonna beat me. Like, it's one of the when we get to the MTT section of this, it's kind of like entitlement. Like, when people are disappointed of busting a tournament, like my in the money is like 28%. I sent you my stats. So I still bust 72% of the time. So it's like, if I have ace queen, you have ace king, I'm expecting to win? No. Like, I feel lucky to even cash.
Right. So effectively, it's like if Hustler had been around for 4 years and then another stream pops up, and Hustler hasn't upgraded its production quality or value or vision in that
Yeah,
time, it's of course most likely going to be worse than the new one
exactly.
that pops up, right?
So from an outsider perspective, obviously Hustler's done a good job, and
They've done a
it's
great job. Like
yeah.
it's just very visually appealing. I think they've done an excellent job. And to be fair, like all of these things, this is like the free market at work, right? There's two streams, and you're building off of each other, right? Like you're figuring out, what one is doing exceptionally well, and then you just progress, and that's the nature of competition and progression. And yeah, it makes sense.
All the streams have different core strategies which have similar player crossover.
Yeah,
So
except
something
for
like
the Stones stream. They had a different model. They
a different model that a lot of us are against, but more so than Hustler, what I think is interesting is the advent of the lodge in the stream coming there, because Doug Polk has obviously Upswing, Angie and Brad Owen has their vlogger audience. So I feel like that's a really interesting experiment to see how that goes, because let's be honest, like our equipment, like the live bike equipment is going to smash like everybody, except maybe Poker Go. But even then, like, they're different flavors. So when it comes to a visual perspective, you're saying Hustler is like good. Like, what's coming up is, sorry, like, just being objective, live bike's just going to be better.
there's
And the
that there's
lodge,
that opinion that I was looking for.
yeah, I mean, that's like, the thing is, this is a podcast. It's presumably going to release before, the Live of the Bike relaunch. Plus, you could have me back at any time. It's to hype up what's coming. But like, let's like, the lodge has spent money upgrading their equipment, and like objectively, it's just not going to be as good as on the bike. So
Yeah, as big as, upswing poker is and as successful as, Doug, Brad, and Andrew have been, there are no Bally's, right?
yeah.
Like, who is
So
Bally's, right? There's very few corporations like Bally's.
yeah, and at the same time, there's also very few people like Doug Polk, Andrew Nemi, and Brad Owen. So we have different flavors for different streams, and it kind of just goes from there. And
Cool, man.
it's yeah, like I
It's good to
said,
see.
everyone's got different strategies. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
it's good.
different strategies and strengths. So we're just gonna play towards our strengths, and none of us are perfect. None of us can do everything. Like when people are saying, "Oh, this is better than that," it's like for now, right? Like when 3D or VR poker streaming comes out, like whatever the hell Live at the Bike is now is probably just out, archaic. And I don't know. But
Yeah.
from
Well,
what we have, like literally everybody on the team, the bike, Bally's, execs are just like, yeah, this is 2022. This is what's up.
and I hope that VR streaming doesn't happen in the near future because I get wildly sick.
Yeah.
My
I
experience
mean,
will be quite worse than the average watcher because of my insane motion sickness when I put those goggles on. Um,
we are all going to be working hard, but this is like a good opportunity for especially Brian Arakaki and myself to take a step back, because at least in the last few years, when Brian even longer than me, but in the last few years when I was a coner, I was like spearheading my strengths, which are I'm not perfect and I don't see everything, but just like poker, you're going to play towards your strengths, and we're all aware that we're weak in something, or at least people who aren't suffering from Dunning-Kruger are aware that we're all weak in certain areas, and you just try to mitigate that kind of weakness and potentially turn into a strong area. But really, like, your natural strengths are always going to be your natural strengths. So that's what Brian and I were pushing, when the equipment hadn't been upgraded, and we kept it alive. Like when Bally's checked our analytics, it wasn't that far behind Hustler. So it's with what we had, we did what we could.
well, with that said, as we're wrapping up here, the CPG viewer, listener, where can they go to check out the stream? What time? What's the schedule like? All the details.
So we're intending for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday minimum. This debut is April 30th. It's going to be a Saturday. And again, I wish I'd give you more definitive answers, but literally the answers are changing every day and all in a good direction. And
Well, check out the Live at the Bike stream, and you'll get answers there.
please
I'm
do.
sure that they'll want you to know when the next episode is going to launch. But 4 million on the table, April
Yeah, it's
30th. I would probably check that out if I were
should be
interested in
over
watching high stakes poker.
should be over 4 million, should be over 4.5. But again, like, people in the industry know I'm not a big talker, even though I know certain things might happen, because it's like, what if it doesn't? Then, like, no one's gonna rip on me, but it kind of is a notch against your credibility. But yeah, we aim to have over 4.5 million on the table. And again, cryptic, but some exciting people, past, present, and hopefully future.
All right, man. It's been great having you on. Great to hear about the relaunch of Live at the Bike. Excited to see what develops down the road. And, with that said, if anybody in the CPG audience wants to connect with you, where can they go?
Email Wayne@liveatthebike.com, just if you want to play in the show. And we are going to play basically high stakes only, and we want to try to get as many people in. But here's the other thing too. Like, several people publicly and privately have thrown shade at the company, and myself. And it's like, while I don't really care either way, I'm just like not going to put you at the top of the list when you do things like that. And it's not even about poker skill. Like, yeah, people throw shade about my poker skill, and it's like, I send you my little poker graph. It's like, okay, that's just my online. Forget like live. Yeah, maybe I'm losing everything live. Whatever. I don't care. But just like when you have that attitude, it's not even just towards me. It's like, how are you going to treat other people on the show? How are you going to treat the audience? You just straight up have like a negative or entitled attitude when like, especially when it's a poker pro, like, look, you're here to fleece the Rex. Like, sorry, wait in line. Like, if you're not bringing anything to the table, and even the TV players that, bring something to the table on all these shows, all these poker shows, it's like, presumably you're going to kill these Rex for like quite a bit. Like, give them an experience, give them a story, have a video. If you can't even do that, then like, know your place in the poker world, so to say.
Well, Wayne, you can put me at the top of the list. I've never talked trash about Live at the Bike or you in any public or private forum, and I can't prove the private one, but it's true nonetheless.
Yeah. Oh no, we already know like external personalities, and of course there's like fun trash talkers. That's totally fine. Like, but like the ones that are just straight up like malicious, like self-centered, and just like, what are you doing, man? Like,
well, the game's changing, right? Like the game is changing over time to where poker players and higher level poker players have become more public personas, and they either need to change their behavior with the times, or they don't. And if they don't, well, then you cost yourself opportunities, right? And that's just the nature of the real world. So cool, man. Yeah, again, it's great having you on. Really enjoyed it, and we'll catch up in the near future. Congrats on the relaunch.
All right, thank you.
All right, welcome Shu to this very special breakdown of some hands played at the new Live at the Bike setup. We're going to be checking out, how everything looks, and also briefly analyzing the hands in standard CPG Tactical Tuesday fashion. As you can see, today John is not around, so I have CPG head private coach Shu on to look at these hands and check out the footage. Shu, how you doing?
Good. Excited to be here. Gonna do my best John impression for the next 30 minutes or so.
All right. Lots of raising. Just lots of turning pairs into bluffs and lots of raising. And also feeling very confused when you have king, queen off. I think that's the perfect John impression.
Right. I ate kimchi this morning for breakfast to get in the mood.
All right. So there you have it. Shu is in the John mood. We're going to look at these hands. So Live at the Bike, presented by Bally's. You can see the branding sort of everywhere. And yeah, despite there not being dollar signs in front of the stack sizes, this is a cash game. So automatically, welcome back, Live at the Bike. We have an open from the cutoff with the jack and the deuce. And we have a 3-bet by today's guest, Wayne, with a king and a 10. So jack deuce, pretty wide. Wayne, 3-betting, a king and a 10, also pretty wide. I don't really know that there's much to say after that, right? Like, these guys are getting after it on the brand new set. They're feeling frisky. I really like the video wall in the background. It's pretty cool.
Wait, you take the place of Kitty? Is that the deal?
Yeah, she called in sick.
What
regular
about
coffee with all
yeah,
the
she
things.
tested positive.
She should have still come.
Exactly. Either that or she's pregnant. I wasn't sure which test she was showing.
5. What was that?
Yeah.
9-5.
Cool. Thanks, man. Thank you very much.
Hello. So now we are fighting fire with fire, and we have Jack Dewey 4-bet. I guess. Any thoughts, Shu?
I'm going to assume that Wayne recognizes. I'm assuming there's some game dynamic going on where Wayne is going out of his way to play with the cutoff, and king 10 off probably isn't a 3-bet in these positions, so it seems like a wide 3-bet. And yeah, I really don't know what you should do if it's a 4-bet here, especially when you start the hand, maybe 9K effective, so you're putting in a third of your stack. Depending on how crazy the cutoff is, I think calling isn't out of the question.
I mean, it's a hand that is okay with a low SPR. And I mean, if Wayne's thoughts here is that Kier is raising a ton and probably getting out of line, then maybe, we just flat, try to flop a pair and get it in, right?
Yep.
Which is what Wayne does. He does flat, and he does flop a pair. So now, yeah, there's 6,800 in the pot, and Wayne has 6,200, so SPR is a little bit under 1. Kier has him covered. Kier goes ahead and bets 1,500, which is about a quarter pot, and Wayne puts the money in, and it appears as if Kier is not going to call with his jack and his deuce of different suits. I guess I think the quarter c-bet is reasonable here from Kier. I think Wayne shouldn't raise the flop, though. Like, I think King 10 is not going to be giving up tons of equity to, like, Ace X, so not much, not very necessary or much need to protect your hand. And, Kier has already put in 5 bets, with a hand like Jack Deuce off. And Jack Deuce has 3% equity here, so allowing these type of hands to keep putting money in the pot when they have 3% equity seems like the best route to take in Wayne's spot.
Agreed. And if villain did have a hand like queens or jacks, you can always get value on turn and river. So, there's no need to fast play top pair here.
Yeah, I agree. But cool. Looks like live at the bike is going to be fairly.
Show the wheel one. Thank you. Thank you. What do you show?
And Wayne shows. What a nice host. Looks like live at the bike is going to be quite action packed, and I've heard that for their launch, that's going to be happening later today, which is 4/30/2022. Their plan is to have like 4 million, 4.5 million on the table. So they're going bigger and better through and through. I would say that Andy may be off the hook. They may play a bigger pot, the biggest pot that has ever been on live at the bike with all these stack sizes. And with that said, let's take a look at the second hand, which is going to be a bomb pot, and I'll need to load it up. So, all right, so we have this second clip played on the brand spanking new live at the bike, locked and loaded. So let's dive into the action. So
That's right.
have a bomb
I'm
pot,
old. I also forget shit.
2,100 in the middle. They're playing 5,000 with 100 big blind Annie. So
I check.
assuming they
Deuce. What goes
all
with the
put
deuce?
about 200,
Check.
2 big blinds out there for this bomb
Here
pot.
it comes.
So everybody checks to Tim here in the cutoff. Tim bets quarter pot. Shu, thoughts?
I like this bet from Tim. Betting with middle pair, even though you're betting into 6 other people, you can clean up your equity. And also, Tim has blockers to the straight and flush if those complete, so he can bluff on a heart or 6 or an ace. So he has potential bluffing opportunities and also can clean up his equity right here. So I like this bet from Tim.
Yeah, and I guess everybody's putting in 3 big blinds now that they're 7-handed and there's 2,100. The math checks out. 3 big blinds here for the bomb pot.
Let's see how many
He bets
hearts I
a
have.
quarter.
Holy shit, none.
And it looks like Jackie's going to call with his top pair, which makes sense.
You know I only play
JD is going to call with his second pair. And Wayne is also going to call with bottom pair. Thoughts on all the calls around?
Yeah, pretty easy call from Jackie. And then, JD has double backdoors as well. And given that he's getting, over 4-1, I think it's a pretty easy call. And Wayne could go either way. He's getting an incredible price. He's got sneaky trip outs. So I think, calling is fine. Also, just like letting it go right here is totally reasonable too.
Yeah, I think one of the major problems for Wayne is that, tray 4 is out there, right? And so like his ace may not be clean. His deuce is most likely clean, but the ace may not be. So that would rather have like some sort of backdoor flush draw, but he's getting a nice Groupon discount for hopping in here with his $500. So he does.
Soon to be the winning hand.
All right.
And Jack of clubs on the turn. And it very quickly checks around here. What do you think about Tim's decision to check last to act in the cutoff on the Jack of clubs?
I think it's good because, when you get 3 callers on the flop, someone's probably got something. And yeah, at that point, if you don't pick up equity, I think it's completely reasonable to just shut it down.
Yeah, I think bluffing could be a thing too, right? With your second pair. Jack 10 would be the most reasonable hand that improves on this turn card. So could generate lots of fold equity with a big bet, but checking against 3 other players is obviously quite reasonable as well. And everybody else just very naturally check to the pre-flop raiser, or the flop aggressor, I should say.
I would be more worried than just Jack 10. These guys can have Jack 5, even Jack deuce.
You got a Jack. You have a 5 though, so that makes the Jack 5 less likely.
Yeah.
Jack deuce. I mean, maybe like they can't really have Jack deuce of clubs, right? So they have to call the flop with like just bare Jack deuce, which feels a little unlikely, but who knows?
Yeah, it's live poker. Anything can happen.
Live poker, bomb pots, live at the bike. They're getting in there and battling around. River's an ace, so Wayne in the hijack now improves to the best hand. There's 4,100 in the pot. Wayne has 8,500. I guess the first question is, should Wayne bet? Which he does bet. 2,500.
I think he should bet. You can get value for him, Jack 10, maybe even like Queen Jack of hearts or something like that, and definitely also from nut flush draws, so like ace X of hearts. I'm not a big fan of Wayne's sizing. He went like 60% pot. I would probably go closer to a third. Should be expecting the ace to be a card where people overfold. And also, I'm mostly targeting a jack at this point, or maybe a 10. So I would choose a small size, trying to get a crying call from second or third pair.
Yeah, and I mean, backdoor clubs are certainly a thing here as well, right? And tray 4 gets there as well, which is certainly a thing. So even though upgraded to 2 pair, still little tentative, little cautious about his 2 pair. And everybody folded to Jackie at this point. It's Jackie's action.
6, almost 7.
Who asks how much money Wayne has, which is maybe not the question Wayne wants to hear. It wouldn't be the question that I would want to hear anyway, asking how much I got left.
Right, so Jackie's in the big blind. I think like the person who's most likely to have a flush or a straight is Jackie, because he's out of position. If he's got a nutted hand, he's probably going for the check raise on the river. So,
and he just declares all in. Any thoughts about Jackie's sizing here? There's still a player left to act, JD, who's got 21K.
right.
It's a little risky jamming when JD could check a flush as well.
I think there's pros and cons. If JD has a hand like top 2 pair or a set, and Jackie raises to 8,500, which is Wayne's effective stack, JD could make a call with a set. But once Jackie goes all in, it's really hard for JD to call unless he has a flush or maybe king queen for the top straight. So I think there's pros and cons. If I was in Jackie's shoes and I was going to raise, I would probably just make it 8,500 and put Wayne in, but could be convinced to just stick it all in and try to get JD to fold a strong hand too.
Yeah, this is where we need John's energy read as to JD and the likely strength of his hand, right? I don't think we got to see the action of him checking, but Jackie's there, and I'm sure Jackie's paying attention. So there is something to be said about gathering information on JD that only Jackie has access to, that we the watchers and the folks breaking down this specific hand may not be privy to. So yeah, Jackie sticks Wayne in.
Oh, that's pretty brutal. I call.
Yeah.
JD folded. Wayne with the that's pretty brutal. I call. So
I was gonna say pretty tough spot for Wayne, but he didn't even think for 2 seconds.
Well, he said it was brutal, and then he said I call. So I'm guessing again he may recognize that Jackie is quite capable here on the river to raising, turning a pair into bluff, and just decides that his hand is good enough to bluff catch versus Jackie's raise, and Jackie
I'll let you backdoor clubs. I'm just like
Jackie
0
sheepishly
folds. I'm just not gonna waste.
laughs and I guess pays Wayne his money. So looks like good things in store for Live at the Bike. And congrats to Wayne for winning these first 2 hands. I don't know how the episodes after these hands, the action after these hands took place, like if Wayne managed to book a win or how well he did. I guess that will be revealed in Live at the Bike after the relaunch when they post these episodes up somewhere. But for now, check out Live at the Bike on YouTube. Really big games. The streaming wars are going, and it's great for everybody in the audience because, there's nothing that upgrades viewing experience like competition. And so I think we're in a really great place right now as a community, and we get to sort of watch and see how these shows develop over time. Shu, got anything left to add before we call it for this Tactical Tuesday-esque episode?
Nope. Just, really excited for Live at the Bike to make a comeback. I'm sure many viewers were watching it a couple of years ago and it sort of trailed off. So yeah, really, really kind of a nostalgic feeling, even though it's not even that old of a show. But yeah, really excited to see the action at the bike.
And what's more LA-esque than your show getting a facelift, right? That's kind of the thing to do in Hollywood land. So thank you for watching. Click the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Check out Live at the Bike, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.